In the ancient world, human suffering was rarely attributed to a single, unified cosmic force. When crops failed to grow or seasonal rains didn't arrive, people blamed a fragmented network of local demons and spirits. The evolution of a unified devil begins just outside the ancient walls of Jerusalem. Beyond the safety of the sacred city lies the Valley of Hinnom, a barren landscape that hosted a darker set of religious practices. To appease those localized spirits and guarantee their agricultural survival, some communities constructed massive pits of fire. In desperate rituals, they would sacrifice their own firstborn children to the flames. The psychological scar left by these sacrifices was deep. The memory of burning children was so traumatizing that the physical Valley of Hinnom eventually became the literal Hebrew translation for the word hell. The biblical prophet Jeremiah documented these localized atrocities, delivering a fierce condemnation of the rituals taking place outside the city. The text records God explicitly rejecting these practices, stating he never asked for such rituals, and drawing a hard line against pagan influence. As early monotheists formalized their laws, a theological vacuum appeared. The growing Israelite community needed a way to consolidate the blame for worldly suffering and pagan temptations onto a single responsible entity. They introduced a title for this role, Satan. In its original Hebrew context, this was not a proper name, but simply a noun meaning the adversary, or the enemy of God's order. The original iteration of Satan did not manifest as a supernatural monster. It emerged as a necessary theological container to help early humanity process the very real atrocities they had witnessed in the physical world. As Christian tradition took shape, the title of the adversary expanded into a grand cosmic tragedy. Early Christian theologians constructed an origin story that positioned Satan as one of God's most beautiful and powerful angels. According to this doctrine, he led a rebellion, triggering a war in heaven. Following his defeat, he was cast down into hell. In his fallen state, he assumed a new role as the absolute embodiment of evil. His explicit job was to tempt humanity with earthly delights, hidden knowledge, and the illusion of total control over their lives. This narrative evolution successfully relocated the battleground. The fight against evil moved from the physical ash pits of ancient valleys to an invisible internal war for the human soul. The human necessity for a centralized figure of evil is not confined to Western Christianity. The pattern repeats across world history. Islamic tradition recognizes Iblis, a primary representation of Satan, who fulfills a parallel role as the ultimate adversary and tempter. In Buddhism, there is Mara, a demonic king representing the temptation of evil, often depicted as a frightening hybrid of human and animal forms. This diagram shows the structural similarities between Lucifer, Iblis, and Mara. While specific definitions differ, these major world religions independently developed a singular entity responsible for the temptation of evil. These figures served a precise sociological function. Religious clerics relied on them to enforce moral compliance among their populations, warning that failure to resist temptation would result in eternal suffering. These shared structural roles provided religious authorities with a mechanism to encourage moral compliance through the promise of eternal consequences. By the 8th and 9th centuries in Western Europe, this abstract theological concept was finally given a physical, recognizable face. Depictions of the devil became ubiquitous in medieval art, deliberately painted and carved directly onto the stone architecture of churches across the continent. Artists standardized a specific, monstrous set of physical attributes. He was portrayed as a beast that was half human and half animal, often sporting bat-like wings and horns, and frequently shown emerging from hellish flames. By surrounding Satan with subordinate demons and giving him a terrifying physical form, the church made the threat of sin tangible to a largely uneducated public. The modern image of the devil is an 8th century artistic invention, designed specifically to make the invisible threat of moral failure impossible to ignore. As the visual identity of Satan solidified, local folklore began to merge with scripture, multiplying his aliases across different regions. This blending resulted in a myriad of names: Lucifer, Beelzebub, the Prince of Darkness, and Old Neck. This combination of high theology and local folklore transformed Satan into a ubiquitous presence, an entity believed to be constantly tormenting and tempting people in their daily lives. The entity follows a trajectory from the physical ashes of ancient Middle Eastern fire pits through the cosmic theologies of world religions to the stained glass warnings of medieval Europe. The devil is a lasting historical artifact. The concept evolved and survived because humanity required a face for its darkest impulses and a concrete explanation for the enduring existence of evil.